Okay, so now we're talking about the O, opinion, and this is the second choice that you need to make. Once you have a topic and you picked yourself, the next step is to figure out what your opinion is. And the opinion becomes the basis for your thesis, your topic sentences, and even your transitional sentences. So I'm going to give another scenario. Let's say that our topic, if my ink pen can come off, let's say that my topic is drinking age. And I'm going to go through SOAP, first self, and I'm going to figure out which self legitimately has something to say. And here are my things. So, first of all, I am a U.S. citizen, and either from a citizen's perspective or a traveler's perspective, I know that the United States is the only place in the world where the drinking age is 21. A little bit ridiculous. You can go to any place else, Mexico to Europe to Canada, drinking age is 18, and they have far fewer incidents of drunk driving and alcoholism than we do, and yet United States has a 21 drinking age. Go figure. I happen to be a mom of young adults, and I have a lot to say about drinking age. Let me give you two examples. I have a 25-year-old who thinks that it's totally cool to drink a whole bottle of wine during a Zoom party many nights in a row. I have a problem with that. I don't know what my problem is with it other than a whole bottle of wine and he's by himself, but he says he's not by himself. He's on Zoom with a bunch of other people who are also drinking bottles of wine. Okay, drinking age. Is 25 too young still to know that a bottle is a crazy amount of alcohol? I have women. When my one daughter turned 21, she loved to go to the nest. And I had a huge problem with it because I don't like the idea of my 21-year-olds being at a bar with 50-year-olds, right? So I started to think about it. We should have two bars, one for a younger group, 21 to let's say 30, and then bars for 30 to 100 years old adults. That's related to drinking age. I am the daughter of alcoholics. I was in the Marine Corps. One of my ex-husbands, so I could put ex-wife, was an alcoholic at a very young age. Athletes, binge drinking in high school. This has become a hell of a conversation. Every time I get in a car, drunk driving crosses my mind. I happen to be an educator. Drinking ages, of course. Now, I am an employee, and I think that it would be very nice if I could go to the restaurant and have a beer or a glass of wine for lunch. No big deal, I'm over 21. However, I also used to be a business owner, and no way do I want my employees coming back after lunch smelling like booze, right? So these are just a few examples of things associated. Now, I happen to be in the Marine Corps. Anyone who's been in the Marine Corps knows that you've got a bunch of 18 to 25-year-olds drinking. 26, 27-year-olds binge drinking. It's just ridiculous. My brother was a veteran, 2 times deployed to Afghanistan. He killed himself. Alcohol was involved. So I have something to say about that. Perhaps he was too young to drink too, even though he was 32 when he died. Yeah, so I'm going to go through the whole list of selves and see who and what makes this conversation relevant to me. That's step one. Now, it just is coincidence that I have a daughter turning 21, and what to do about her turning 21 has been a huge conversation, her birthday. And so I'm going to also put 21st birthday up here from a mom's perspective, and we'll see where that goes. Now, I think it's a fascinating conversation, this whole idea of U.S. travel. Definitely have something to say from a mom's perspective or an ex-wife's perspective. Definitely I could say something about drunk driving and the likelihood that younger drivers are more apt to get behind the wheel tipsy than older ones. This is statistically proven, I think. But all of that stuff I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 selves here. The catch here is to pick one. So I think what I'm going to go with is my active duty service time, USMC. So I picked myself. And if you'll notice, we're going to go back to the triangle. I have 2 triangles here, and I'm going to put drinking age and drinking age. Now, the reason we should have 2, and I'll make them bigger actually. So the self I chose, myself, is USMC, active duty service member, right? I was in the Marine Corps. I'm going to go 1 and 2. Can you guys see that? Now, this is my thesis and my antithesis. In real life, it translates like this. Even from one perspective, you should be able to see the good, the bad, the yes, the no, the right, the wrong of any topic. And if you can't do that, you're not being honest, okay? I can walk into a situation and from one perspective, I should be able to argue both sides. And the catch to opinion, OPINION, besides the fact that we all have one, is that we need to come up with 3 provable, that's the key, reasons for the opinion. And if we have reasons for our opinion, it doesn't matter if people agree or disagree, our opinion becomes valid. We can prove it, we can talk about it, we have statistics or evidence or anecdotes that are factual that we can discuss. And somebody say, well, I totally disagree. You can disagree. I disagree too. I see the good, the bad, the yes, the no, the right, the wrong. The essay does not have to be right. The essay has to prove the opinion. Okay? And that's the goal here. Once you have a self, the next thing is to come up with the 2 sides to the conversation and 3 provable reasons. So here's how it's going to work for me. I'm going to say for drinking age that active duty service members should have no drinking age. In other words, their ID card is free passage. Okay, and if you have a piece of paper, you should do this. So there's my triangle. Active duty, no drinking age. If you're in, you get to drink. That's my opinion. And the 3 provable reasons that I am going to use to support my opinion is this. 1, many die before turning 21. I think I can prove that. If I look at World War I, World War II, Vietnam, and this Middle East nonsense, I believe that most of the soldiers who die were not 21 yet. That means that they died for their country before they were legally allowed to buy a beer. That is crazy to me. I don't understand it. I don't agree with it. In my opinion, if you have that ID card, you're an adult, you should be able to drink. Reason number 2, my second triangle. I'm going to argue that the day you sign, you become an adult. And the triangle here would include things like moving away from home, skipping minimum wage job, boyfriend, girlfriend dump on you, cheat on you, you're deployed, you're paying your own bills, you're facing life and death. You know, you're an adult. I believe that happens the day you sign, and adults get to drink. So that's my second reason, provable reason. Now my third provable reason is maybe a little bit different, but I'm going to argue that they deal with life and death, responsibility every day, rifle range, grenades, being in war zones. And if they can figure out who to shoot and who not to shoot, and we trust them, then we should be able to trust them with a 6-pack. So those are my 3 provable reasons. Many died before 21. The day they sign, they become an adult, and they deal with life and death responsibility every day. So my thesis would say active duty service members should be able to use their ID as a right to drink because many die before they're 21. The day they sign, they become adults, and they've dealt with life and death situations every single day since they joined, and they're responsible. This is an essay. Do you all see it? Perfect paragraph, perfect paragraph, perfect paragraph. My introduction might be the history of the military and alcohol, especially after the Prohibition. And then my conclusion might be the future of military and alcohol and whether or not they should have access. Okay, so that's my first essay. Now, if I can argue that active duty service members should be able to drink, then I also need to argue the opposite. Active duty service members should not drink. And believe it or not, I actually believe this too. So this one's going to say active duty service members, no drinking despite age. I don't care how old you are. If you are active duty, you should not drink. And this is the way that I'm going to interpret drinking age with this conversation. Okay, it doesn't matter what my opinion is. It matters what my 3 provable reasons are. So here are my provable reasons. One is that I'm guessing that a good 85 to 90% of those who join are DNA prone to addiction. I think this is true. We don't join because we're patriotic, guys. We're joining to get out of trouble. We're joining because college wasn't an option. We're joining to escape abuse or crazy home life. We're joining because we're tired of living in the ghetto. We're joining probably because somebody in our universe has been or is an addict. And so the last thing somebody in the Marine Corps needs to do is have access to unlimited amounts of alcohol. I think you should not. Okay. Reason number 2, stress and booze is bad. And I think that's easily provable. What's more stressful than leaving home, girlfriend, boyfriend cheat and dump on you, shitty food, sharing a bathroom, crazy, uncomfortable twin-sized bed, no autonomy over where you're sent, how safe it's going to be, and whether or not you're going to come back with all your arms and legs. That's stressful. And the last thing that we know stress needs is alcohol. Alcohol's a downer. It makes us do silly stuff. Stress and booze don't mix, and this is well documented. Now, the third reason is because 22 a day vets in active duty kill themselves. And in almost all of the cases, we're talking 95% plus, drinking and drugs were involved, right? They got our inhibitions to a level where we didn't care anymore, and we jumped or we hung ourselves like my brother did, or they shoot themselves or they pop pills. That's a crazy number, and that alone is good enough reason for me to say that if you're in active duty, there should be no alcohol. I don't care how old you are. Now, I have 2 essays here, right? Imagine if I did this for every single self. 14 times 2, suddenly I'm at 28 essays. And I thought I had nothing to say about the drinking age, right? Or I say, well, I'm not interested in the drinking age. Of course you are. It affects you. You just have to find the right self. Now, at this point, I say, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I'm going to figure out which essay I actually want to write. And for me, because my brother is part of this number, this is the one that loses. Because I'm not sure if I can be totally objective. I'm not sure if I'm going to get emotional. I don't know really what my reaction's going to be. So I'm going to go with the opposite. And I'm going to say active duty service members, even knowing the risks, I'm going to say that if you're active duty, you should be able to drink. Now I have an essay. Okay. This is how this choice works. Every single time you get a topic, after you pick yourself, you have to look at your opinion, the antithesis of that, right? Your thesis, your antithesis. You need to come up with 3 provable reasons for your opinion. And from there, you spin your triangles, and I have my perfect paragraphs. It's quite brilliant, actually. Now, the next choice we're going to make is audience. And I'm going to stick with this same drinking age scenario. We have my essay. Audience is next. A is for audience. AUDIENCE. And there's a few things I need to tell you about audience. Audience is not reader. So audience does not equal reader. I am not your audience. I am your reader. So to illustrate this, let's talk about a couple of things. If you've ever gone into a doctor's office, coffee table, magazines. I can read any of them, but I may not be the target audience for that magazine. I may not be interested, sure, but bigger than that, I may not be the audience. For example, parenting magazine. Who's the target audience for parenting magazine? Now, we all can read it, but the target audience for this magazine is anyone with small children, infant to probably 3 or 4 years old. Talks about potty training and timeouts and napping and breastfeeding and all car seats and all this junk. I'm not even the target audience for this, and I've got a boatload of children, right? Now, maybe in 10 years, when there are grandkids, I will become the target audience again, but right now I'm not. Or Sports Illustrated. Everybody can read this, but they have a target audience, right? Sports enthusiasts, those who work out, maybe exercise regimes, maybe you're interested in the swimsuit edition once a year, but they have a target audience. I am not it, but I am capable of reading. Now, knowing that audience and reader are not the same thing is a big deal, because if you go to Fox News, for example, they have an audience. I'm not their audience, but they have one. Far right, a little bit more conservative, a little bit undereducated, a little bit religious. They have an audience, white and older. MSNBC, they have an audience. It's way on the liberal side compared to Fox. Undereducated, West Coast and Northwest, they have an audience, right? Who am I? I'm the audience for NPR, BBC News, Al Jazeera English, things like this. Now, can I listen to any news channel? Of course I can, but I have to know who their audience is so that I can determine their biases, their purposes, and I can counterbalance with the proper research, right? So audience, not the same as reader. Now, the second example that I like to give is with this telephone, actually, right? Everybody has a telephone, and you've probably had a conversation when somebody else is in the room. In that moment, the person I'm talking to is my audience, and whoever's eavesdropping in the room is the reader. Now, there's a good way and a bad way to be a writer. The bad way to be a writer is to just have a conversation in my head with my audience, right? An audience of my choosing, and the reader's going to eavesdrop on the conversation. So check this out. Hello? Oh, hi. Oh, no. Really? Is she okay? Oh, my gosh. Of course. Do you want me to come? Okay. Now, do you know who I'm talking to? The answer is no. Do you know what just happened? The answer is no. Do you know something happened? Of course you do. You hear my heightened voice, or you hear my volume, or you hear my facial expressions. But that's not the same as having detail and understanding a conversation, right? A lot of times my students write to no one, and their essays vague and non-specific because they're not speaking to an audience, and more importantly, they're not speaking in a way that the reader can follow the conversation. Now here's the same conversation again. Hello? Oh, hey, Michelle, what's up? Oh my gosh, Jessica was in a car accident? Is she okay? Oh wow, broke both of her legs. That's major. Oh yeah, the corner of Monterey and Fred Waring, that's bad. Okay, so she's going into surgery. Do you want me to come? Of course we can bring you food. Okay, which hospital? Eisenhower. Okay, I'll see you there. Now I'm still talking to my friend Michelle, but this time, do I have to tell you anything? When I tell you, oh, we got it, you're like, I know, I heard. And that's because my essay is aware of its reader, and I'm speaking to an audience. Now, understanding this means that when I'm talking about, let's say, the drinking age and allowing active duty service members to have free passage, who would my audience be? Well, it might be Congress or the alcohol lobby. It might be the Commandant of the Marine Corps. It might be the commanding officers or the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the Pentagon. But it's not the average Joe Blow, because they don't care and they don't know and they're not personally affected by it. It's certainly not going to be my English 1A class. I have to pick an audience, talk to that audience, and my reader, might be you, would be able to eavesdrop on the conversation and follow along. I'm going to tell the history. I'm going to say my reasons for my opinion. I'm going to prove each one within the perfect paragraph with supporting evidence. And I'm going to conclude with what the future needs to hold. Past, present, future, right? Past, research, future. This is how you ensure that your introductions and your conclusions never overlap or never repeat themselves. Most importantly, when you write an essay, you have to pick an audience. So this video just covered opinion and audience. We'll come back with purpose and wrap it up.